Story 1. To be honest, even though it is inevitable, death is pretty scary. I guess mainly because of the fact we live for so long in a conscious state of mind that pretty much anything outside of that is pretty scary to think about. Story 2. Being blinded. Very few things in a movie or series provoke as visceral a horror in me as someone being permanently blinded. Saw 10's vacuum suction blinding machine comes to mind. Also, wrong turn sentence of Darkness, where someone is ritually blinded with a hot poker and has their tongue cut out. They are then thrown into a cave to wander around until they starve. Both of those mental images live rent-free in my head. To tear away someone's senses like that horrifies me deeply. So much in my life depends on my ability to see, from my job as a software developer to my hobbies of reading, painting, or writing. The idea of going blind is bad enough. The idea of someone deliberately inflicting it on someone else is much, much worse. I also put a similar level of visceral horror on mind-wiping and brainwashing. Stripping away someone's memories and/or identity is a crime beyond mere mutilation. This premeditated murder, but they're still walking around afterward, so everything's fine and dandy. Story 3. The existential threat that I always feel. Nothing's happened yet today, and yet I have to feel. Danger near, danger here. Nowhere to escape to and nobody there to hear. As I now scream in fear, the existential threat is drawing very, very near. And they all look away, look away. Can't they see the existential threat is on its way? The existential threat that I tend to feel when I'm walking down the street or right behind the wheel, turning left, turning right, trying to escape the cloud that's close enough to feel. And you may laugh out loud, laugh out loud. The existential threat is always hanging about. And you may say go away, say go away. The existential threat is never going away. Doctor gave me these. I said, what are these? He said that they'll cure an existential type disease. Doubt they will. But I'm keen to try whatever. Give me that pill. And he said, here's the bill, here's the bill. In the end, they didn't work. I paid the whole bill. Because insurance won't, they just won't cover existential meds. I wish I had known. Story 4. Living to become a burden. I work in a hospital, so I see plenty of people who are basically just a chore for their family and a strain on resources. I don't ever want to become that. Story 5. Raising my kid to be a total asshole or criminal, or messing it up so badly she eventually cuts me out of her life. As a mother who struggles with mental health issues and is still seeking diagnostic clarity for certain issues, I am constantly worried I am going to mess up raising my daughter. The last thing I want to do is be the mother who causes their child trauma that they need to spend years and a small fortune to move past in therapy as an adult. Story 6. The score is 18-8, and I am leading in badminton. I feel like passing gas, and I go with it. The only thing is, I expected this to be a silent one. It went out as loud as the Tsar Bomba. Also, I couldn't control myself. To make things worse, I am wearing white pants, and my crush is the referee. Story 7. I'm severely scared of heights, although I'm trying my best to overcome it slowly. I keep climbing and hiking to some high places, and I think it's working. Story 8. The fall of modern civilization and the likely loss of humanity that will follow climate change. Floods, droughts, and wildfires are horrible things, but it's the water wars and the probable fascist-leaning reactions to crop failures that I dread. It doesn't help that it's the current direction we're going towards, not an irrational, unlikely fear like sharks or being buried alive. Story 9-1. My child being seriously hurt or dies. My husband being seriously hurt or dies. Me dying and leaving behind my children without a mom, and my husband now has to be a single dad. My daughter or son being sexually assaulted. Yeah, I guess I'm privileged. Story 10. Throw up. It is so irrational. I have a fear of vomiting, and it impacts my daily life. I am scared to eat or drink too fast. I get anxious as soon as I start to feel sick. I get anxiety when I consume alcohol. I get intrusive thoughts about it. I am too scared to go to parties and more. It is genuinely terrible. People think it is a joke or silly, but I am genuinely terrified. I have to close my eyes and ears when throw-up scenes happen in shows. Animated is usually fine though. If someone mentions feeling sick or having a sour stomach, I immediately get anxious and will distance myself from them. The sound or sight of other people doing it causes me to have a panic attack. Being nauseous makes me extremely anxious. The action of doing it does not relieve me, but instead, I sit in fear of it happening again. When I get nauseous, I get anxious. When I get anxious, I get nauseous. It has gotten to the point that I cannot tell the difference anymore. It is genuinely my worst fear. I would rather die than throw up. I hate it. I know it makes no sense, yet I cannot help it. Story 11. Seeing my surroundings get old and die one by one. I'm not scared of death. But it's a different story when thinking that I would have to see someone close to me dying one by one later when we get old in the future. Story 12. Everything. I have severe anxiety. Looking at the news and seeing North Korea threatens to declare war on South Korea, and China gets ready for war, and North Korea joins Ukraine war, and Russia threatens World War III and nuclear war, doesn't help that much. Story 13. Leprosy, something happening to my luggage at an airport, being lonely, becoming poor. I grew up lower middle class and lost everything once. I never want it to happen again, and the list goes on. Story 14. I am scared of stagnation, getting stuck in the same place, doing the same things and never moving forward. It is the idea of time passing without growth or change that is unsettling. It is like watching life happen around you while you stand still. Story 15. That my brain, my consciousness, my mind are not under my control. The horrors beyond my comprehension that my brain thinks sometimes without my consent are disturbing. Story 16. Honestly, probably just any type of apocalypse. I'm constantly having dreams about being in an apocalypse, and it's gotten to the point where I'd know exactly what to do and where to go. The thing that probably gets me most is that I'd have absolutely no control over who would live and who would die. In one of said dreams, it was a zombie apocalypse, of course. I had to kill my brother because he got infected, which later forced me to watch my mom say goodbye to the whole family because she, too, was infected. I cannot stand the thought of having to watch or actually kill any of my family members. That, and the thought of not being able to be in contact with my boyfriend in a global emergency or whatever you want to call it. I've constantly thought about everything, from what I would do to who I would look for. Although, yes, the fear of losing loved ones is what it sounds like. It's really the fear of having to see them die in such a slow, painful way that I fear most. Although I feel like it's purely just my dreams that give me that fear, I just kind of wish they weren't so often. Story 17. I'm scared of losing the people I care about because the thought of being alone is really overwhelming. I also have this fear of not being able to achieve my dreams or live up to my potential, which makes me anxious about the future. It's tough sometimes to shake off those worries and just focus on the present. Story 18. Trump followers. He is not the problem. He is just a tumor that makes it worse. The people who rationalize and justify backing an entitled, pampered trust fund brat just because he has the audacity to publicly threaten, hurt, and incite others to harm the same people they dislike scare me greatly. Half the planet consists of horrible human beings, and they love that one of their own may get back into power so they can begin the job of eradicating the rest of us. Story 19. I fear losing the love of God. I also fear people getting hurt or killed over something I have caused. I couldn't imagine what it would feel like having to live with those thoughts for the rest of my life. Story 20. Losing relevance, kind of like being in the room but no one really noticing. It's not about being the center of attention, but just wanting to matter in some way, at least while I'm still alive. Story 21. My life is coming to a conclusion, and I feel like I did not do enough. I read something a while ago that really stood out to me. Making a difference starts with small acts. Not everything has to be done on a global scale. You need to accept that you probably will not change the world. But at least you made the little corner of your life better for yourself and those around you. Story 22. I am low-key scared of growing up and not living my best life. You know? Like, what if I get stuck in a boring routine? But then again, it makes me want to go out and try new things. Anyone else feel that? Story 23. Insects and bugs, each and every kind, including butterflies and ladybugs. The thought of them landing on me or crawling on me makes me shudder, even more so with the ones that can bite or sting me. I don't have allergies to them, I'm just terrified, and I've been terrified since I can remember. Story 24. Honestly, I am not scared of pretty much anything besides thinking about what happens when we die. So I would say dying because, for all we know, it will be scary when we are gone or something like that. Story 25. Driving. I was in a crash recently, totaled my car while hydroplaning. No injuries and got a new car now, but I'm absolutely terrified out of my mind just driving 5 minutes to the store. I'm a better driver now than I've ever been, but at what cost? Story 26. My own future. I cannot find employment. How can I gain experience if nobody cares about training people anymore? And multiple positions are combined into one job to save money. But then I go to recruiting hell and remember that I am not the only one struggling. The economy needs a reset. This is ridiculous. Story 27. The ocean. Absolutely none of my business what's going on in that deep, dark, undiscovered abyss that can house all sorts of horrors beyond my comprehension. Story 28. Being raped, tortured, and killed. The same happening to someone in my family, what that would do to my family. Becoming another Dateline special. My parents dying and being left alone. Doing life on my own. Story 29. Trump is exacting vengeance against his perceived enemies with the power of the federal government and without any roadblocks. He is a fascist promising persecution of Americans who disagree with him. It would be the sort of state terror and violence that Americans fought against in Europe and the Pacific. Story 30. Alzheimer's. On the other side of the coin, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. One has your body relatively okay, but your brain is failing. The other has your brain okay, but you're trapped in a failing body. Both are terrifying. Story 31. I don't know why, but God, I hate those creatures. Never been stung by wasps or bees, but I don't want to be. Bees are cool though, but wasps, I really don't like wasps. Story 32. Being the responsible adult when someone is having a medical emergency. I don't want someone's survival to depend on my actions. I just took a cardiopulmonary resuscitation class yesterday, actually, to try to minimize the anxiety this fear gives me. Story 33. Home invasion, burning to death, being stabbed, being raped, having my face ripped off by an angry chimpanzee. The deeper fear is never doing anything spectacular in life. Story 34. Zombies. Have you ever heard of the San del Cristo massacre? There's a film about it, but it's not a mockumentary. That town existed, those people existed, that man existed. Those pictures are as real as they can get. They are not the slow ones either. This is black magic type stuff. After his execution, someone dug his grave up at a state prison, and his body has never been found, along with numerous other people. They were all bitten. An entire town gone overnight. Story 35. Death, for sure. The thought of nothing, even though I'm a bit spiritual and believe in some sort of afterlife, is really terrifying. Oh, and being hurt in relationships. That makes me a completely different person when I'm in a new relationship with someone. Story 36. How I would die when it's time and not anything about suicide, just to clarify, house fires, building fires, wildfires, tornadoes, and any natural disaster. There is more I could say, but that's politics related and not everyone cares about politics. Story 37. Pain and becoming increasingly debilitated. I went to a theater with steep steps and no handrail and had to go down 5 steps on my butt because I was afraid of falling. Story 38. Well, death for sure, and lately I'm afraid or hating getting old. I'm almost 40, and I can't imagine being old. I just don't feel like I'm almost or I'm now a middle-aged man. And I fear that more each day. Damn, you made me sad now. Story 39. Needles. Beforehand, I'm grand, thinking I can do this. It will only take a second. But when I see even the container for a needle, I completely break down in panic. Story 40. Where to start? Spiders? Dentists? Ventriloquist dolls? I know that's odd, but they are creepy. Then the health fears of heart attack, being blind, and having a catheter inserted. Story 41. I'm scared of the grief I'll feel when the people I love most start to pass away as we get older. I'm scared the grief will be too much and I'll do something stupid or not be able to physically handle it. I have a lot of anticipatory grief due to this fear, ironically. Story 42. I am really scared of the unknown, like not knowing what is going to happen next in life or if I am making the right choices. It sometimes feels overwhelming to think about the future and all the things I cannot control. I also have this fear of losing people I care about and not being able to handle it when it happens. Story 43. Good with death, but I'm scared of my dog dying and having to go through that, my parents getting a neurodegenerative disease like dementia, and getting something like dementia myself. Story 44. I've seen way too many movies where a misunderstanding leads to terrible consequences, and I hate when this happens. Also, being someone who cannot express their feelings properly and gets easily misunderstood, this is quite triggering to me. Story 45. My parents are dying. I am 41 now, and both my mom and dad are in their 70s. They are still doing really well for their age, but every now and then, I catch a glimpse of their health not being 100%. Story 46. People are giving up on decency because there are more examples of successful indecent people than successful decent people for others to aspire to be. Story 47. I'm scared to die. I have a beautiful family, 9 grandkids, and 1 great-grandbaby, and I don't want to leave them. I'm a 59-year-old man and have been through a lot in my life. When I was in my 20s, I got stabbed 3 times in the lungs with an ice pick. I walked out of the hospital and went home. For some reason, I just wanted to go home. I went to sleep and woke up in a puddle of blood, unable to breathe. The ambulance came, and the next thing I remember, I was communicating with a family member who had already died. Not talking, but like mind communication. They told me I had to go back. I didn't want to go back, but they said that my wife was pregnant. I happened to look around and saw a bunch of souls like energy, and it felt peaceful. But I woke up and asked my wife if she was pregnant, and she said yes. So I know there's a heaven, but I'm still scared to die because I don't want to leave my family.